We kick things off with tonight's big number, and it's a small one, 849. That is the number of new COVID cases in the Philippines on Tuesday. The first time in 11 months that caseload has dipped below the 1,000 mark. But as with all weeks, well, that's a record this year. The health department stresses the low turnout, as with every Tuesday, was due to a dip in testing output over the weekend. Nonetheless, and still, active cases are also now at its lowest in nearly 10 months at 25,464.
That comes a day before the country rolls out booster shots for healthcare workers. The local Food and Drug Administration has already amended the emergency use authorization for 3 brands: Pfizer, Moderna, and Sinovac. And just this morning, 1.35 million doses of Moderna jabs arrived in the country. Some of these will be allotted as additional doses.
These vaccines like Moderna, it will be used in our 3-day national vaccination holiday. Meaning we will ramp up most of the vaccinations to the first and second dosing. And then also we will use this maybe for boostering of our healthcare workers and other people. At DOH, they recommended for heterologous. Pero yung mga vaccine maker, they recommended for homologous. Pero silang leeway. But we are recommending na kung ano yung available, yun ang effect nila. Lahat ng mga vaccines naman effective.
Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Just as COVID infections reach new lows this year, the government wants to continue the momentum by finally rolling out booster jabs.
First in line are healthcare workers, but less than 24 hours before the expected launch, government has yet to release guidelines. Greg Gregorio has a big story.
Putting on a full PPE gear has become a usual routine for emergency nurse Jen. This is part of precautionary measures before going inside the ward. In addition to this, they also undergo regular swab tests. Last March, Jen got infected with COVID-19. He then got vaccinated with Sinovac a month after his recovery. Now that it's already past 6 months after getting his second dose, Jen is relieved that health workers can receive their booster shots starting Wednesday, November 17.
Kasi mabibigyan kami lalo ng mas malaking proteksyon ngayon.
The health department says 3 brands, Pfizer, Moderna, and Sinovac, are available for healthcare workers as booster shots. This is based on the amended emergency use authorization of the vaccines.
Yung mga nakatanggap ng Sinovac, maaari siyang makatanggap ng Sinovac, Pfizer, at saka Moderna. Kung iba naman ang natanggap mo, pwede kang Pfizer or Moderna yung additional dose mo.
Pfizer, Moderna, and Sinovac doses are also included in a vaccine expert panel's recommendation. Panel member Dr. Jean Solantes said that mRNA vaccines such as Pfizer and Moderna are the best booster shots for any vaccine brand.
There are data to say that it really has a very good immunogenicity.
Sinovac can still be administered as it is faster in boosting the immunity of those who already received the China-made jabs.
And also give you a better boost faster, which is 7 days.
Dr. Solante notes that once health workers receive their booster shots, fewer personnel are likely to be infected despite being continuously exposed to the virus. However, the National Vaccine Operations Center has yet to release the guidelines for the rollout of booster shots for healthcare workers. The DOH earlier said that the guidelines will be announced Tuesday. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Let's talk more about booster shots, particularly for healthcare workers starting tomorrow. We have with us Dr. Maricar Limpin, the president of the Philippine College of Physicians. Dr. Limpin, welcome to The Big Story.
Hi, good evening, Robbie, and good evening to everyone.
Ma'am, I mean, now, as you know, everybody's starting. We've learned a lot about COVID, the vaccines. Now people are starting to learn and starting to review as much as they can about booster shots. Now, a lot of people have emphasized there's a difference now. This is a booster shot, not a third dose. What's the difference?
meron silang technical people na mag-review.
Hindi ko marinig.
Dr. Limpin?
I don't know how to go eh. So,
We seem to be having technical difficulties with Dr. Limpin. We'll try to get back to her later. In the meantime, since the country's inoculation campaign in March, 31.8 million Filipinos have already been fully vaxxed against COVID-19. That big number represents 29% of the population, a long way still from the target of 90% for herd immunity. 38.4 million Filipinos, or 35% of the population, have received their first doses. Government wants to administer 1.5 million doses a day in a bid to meet its vax target. Last week saw a daily average of 763,000 doses administered.
These are the other big stories tonight. A day after President Duterte walked back on his retirement plans, two parties already expressed interest to adopt him as a senatorial candidate, including the camp of Marcos Jr. Happy time for kids inside malls might just be cut short. The president wants local governments to reconsider allowing unvaxxed minors inside establishments. And say goodbye to foggy vision. Face shields are now optional for areas under alert levels 1 to 3. Planning to already dispose the pandemic staple? Well, better do it the right way. And we will tell you how after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. Close to a year after its use has been made mandatory in the Philippines, use of face shields has finally become optional in areas with lower alert levels.
But disposing of the plastic gear might have some huge environmental repercussions. Shaila Francisco has this story.
Areas under alert levels 1 to 3 can now say goodbye to face shields. The government decided to make its use voluntary. LGUs under alert level 4 will have discretion on whether to carry the policy or not. But in places under alert level 5, as well as in quarantine and medical facilities, face shields will still be mandatory. This is good news to some, especially to those finding it hard to make ends meet.
Siyempre, kasi ako may anak ako. Pambili ko na ng diaper, minsan binibili ko pa ng face shield. Kaya kung siyempre mabigat din siya minsan.
Retailers, of course, are not pleased with the news.
Malulugi kami, pero wala naman tayo magagawa dyan. Kaya sumusunod na tayo.
With the face shield requirement gone in several areas, some environment groups are appealing to the public to be mindful of how they dispose their used face shields. This barangay found a way to dispose theirs through recycling. To lessen trash use, face shields of residents here in Barangay Holy Spirit are shredded using this machine. After the process, it ends up like this. After which, these are mixed with cement to produce something like this brick. Used face shields are sanitized first before being recycled. Unused face shields, meanwhile, are turned into decorations like paroles and even torotos for the new year. The Environment Department is now coordinating with co-processing plants for waste-to-energy projects using face shields.
I-advocate namin yung paggamit ng co-processing. So ito yung gagawin nilang parang alternative sa mga fuel at yung gagamitin ng mga plastic.
Some groups, however, are against this process, since it makes use of incineration, which is harmful to the environment. But the DNR assured that only firms complying with the air quality standard will be allowed to co-process face shields. The DNR will provide LGUs with accredited haulers and companies to assist in the disposal of face shields. They will also release a step-by-step procedure on the proper disposal of face shields and other medical waste. Shaila Francisco, we are One News.
While President Duterte may have eased the face shield policy, he is urging local governments to restrict once again the entry of minors in public spaces. Pat Mangune with a story.
A literal breath of fresh air and some sunlight. For the first time since the pandemic started, Beverly was able to bring her one-year-old child out. But while the threat of COVID still looms, she says she's not as worried as before.
Siyempre, andun pa rin po yung takot na baka mahawa yung baby namin. Pero sinisigurado po namin na sumusunod po kami sa protocols.
Other families have also taken the opportunity to take their kids out to the park. They say that the parks weren't as crowded as they expected.
Hindi naman po siya yung as in crowded. Saka nasa na rin po yan, pangangalaga na rin ng pangangatawan siguro. Saka yung palakasan na rin sa immune system, bahala na. Pero para sa akin, safe naman po.
Other parents and guardians, meanwhile, chose to bring their kids to the malls. For them, wearing a face mask and face shield is enough protection.
Safe naman kasi una, pinapatupad naman ng IATF yung protocol nila. So wearing face mask, face shield. Tapos actually vaccinated naman kami. Kaso yung mga bata nga lang hindi. At saka okay naman dun sa mall. So no worries.
However, minors aged below 12 years old may have to wait a while longer before they can go out again. In his pronouncement on Monday, President Duterte urged local governments to enforce an ordinance restricting the entry of minors below 12 in malls. This comes after the health department reported a 2-year-old who contracted COVID-19 after going to a mall.
Certainly, we cannot allow those below 12 years old or those getting or still unvaccinated to be exposed to the risk of getting COVID-19 in public places.
City health officers and pediatricians have met to submit their recommendation to the Metro Manila Council. NCR mayors are now targeting to craft a unified policy to address the matter.
Ito po ay isasama natin, pati na po ang mga business leaders po natin para mag-exchange tayo ng mga kuro-kuro hinggil dito.
Titingnan natin kung ano ba talaga ang risk level ng pagpayag sa mga unvaccinated minors na pupunta sa malls. Ano ba mga safety precautions yun ang pwedeng gawin?
NCR will remain under Alert Level 2 until month's end. The status allows minors to go to malls pending measures implemented by local governments. For News 5, Patricia Mangune. We are One News.
Let's circle back to our top story. How are healthcare workers preparing for the rollout of booster shot? That big question and more with Dr. Maricar Limpin, the president of the Philippine College of Physicians. Dr. Limpin, welcome again to the big story.
Yes, good evening, Robbie, and good evening to everyone.
Ma'am, we did hear, I mean, this is supposed to roll out tomorrow, particularly for the healthcare workers, but we're hearing that there are still some questions about the guidelines.
I think basically we know that there will be some identified vaccines that will actually be distributed to the different hospitals, and it's just, I think, a matter of whatever is supply that is available, so that will be actually the ones that will be delivered to the hospital. So I know that, like let's say for Santa Ana Hospital, they are ready for tomorrow, and they will start vaccination by tomorrow. And for some, it will be on the next day. No, so it will all depend upon the dates of distribution of the vaccine.
In the meantime, we're all trying to educate ourselves about this process. We're learning things, it seems, term by term, word by word. Now we're talking about booster shots. Some experts are now emphasizing these are booster shots, not third doses. What's the difference?
Yeah, so basically kasi yung third dose is really the third dose, so that is one shot that is being given, no, as to actually to increase or to increase the waning immunity that we have been seen among certain subpopulations. So like the elderly and also those with those who have comorbidities, who are immunocompromised. So it is recommended that these people should actually receive their third shot. The booster shot, on the other hand, no, will have to receive, or will have to be given 2 shots, no, of either whatever is available. Like for the mRNA, it can be the Pfizer or the Moderna.
Okay, but
yes.
Yeah, but Dr. Limpin, outside and beyond the healthcare workers, how should the rest of the public be preparing and bracing ourselves for booster shots? Is it a matter of when, not if?
Yeah, I think from the recommendations and also looking at the data, it should be around 6 months after the second dose, no, of their vaccine. The first 2 doses of their vaccine.
Okay, that was Dr. Maricar Limpin, the President of the Philippine College of Physicians. Maraming salamat po.
For the big story in sports, the Philippine Sports Commission will open its sports facilities to national athletes starting January 10, 2022. In a statement, the PSC board said select national teams could train at the Rizal Memorial Sports Complex in Manila, the Phil Sports Complex in Pasig City, and the Baguio Training Camp. The PSC added it has evaluated viable facilities and that it's coordinating with the IATF as well as the LGUs involved to ensure that all safety measures are taken. The move is part of the country's preparations for both the Hanoi Southeast Asian Games and the Hangzhou Asian Games next year. Time for another quick break. When we return. Despite not getting the backing of the president, the party of Marcos Jr. is still not closing its doors on having the chief executive in their Senate slate. What happens when 2 of the world's top leaders meet face-to-face for the first time? Well, a 3-hour conference with no major breakthroughs. And Sesame Street goes beyond inclusivity as it adds an Asian American Muppet in the midst of growing Asian hate in the U.S.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. Some political analysts believe President Duterte's last-minute tactics in substituting for the Senate candidacy might work again in his favor.
That's especially after 2 parties are already eyeing to adopt him in their senatorial tickets. Marian Enriquez with the details.
Just a month since President Duterte announced his retirement from politics, he walked back on his words and made the last-minute bid for a Senate seat on November 15, the last day of filing for substitution. The Duterte patriarch has yet to figure in any senatorial survey, but some analysts already expect him to shake up the list, even as satisfaction ratings have been sliding down.
Malaki ang chance ng ating Pangulo dahil kahit papaano naman ay meron siyang following.
He has been in the public eye for the past 6 years. Malakas din yung chance talaga pagka kilala na yung pangalan mo nationally.
Though a political science professor believes the Senate race is a different playing field altogether.
Yung numero niya sa pagka-presidente ay hindi translatable yan sa numero niya sa pagka-senador.
With his unexpected entry to the race, some parties are now eyeing to adopt him in their lineups. Lakas CMD President Martin Romualdez says it's his honor to nominate Duterte in their ticket, especially that the party had helped elect him in 2016. They're now formalizing their list and will make an announcement soon. The party of ex-President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo is fielding the presidential daughter Sara as vice president. While caught by surprise, Partido Federal ng Pilipinas of Bongbong Marcos is still considering having him in their slate, even as Duterte said he won't support Marcos Jr.'s presidential bid.
So pag-uusapan din ng partido at yan of course he is always under consideration to be included in the ticket.
Duterte filed to substitute for Lizal Visorde o Federalismo ng Dugong Dakilang Samahan instead of the ruling party, PDP Laban. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
In world news, the highly anticipated meeting between U.S. President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping concluded after a virtual summit that lasted more than 3 hours. The two world leaders exchanged views on bilateral relations and issues of common interest. After the talks, China agreed to fast-track the entry of U.S. executives into China. This was the only concrete deliverable announced from the meeting. Both leaders, however, agreed for the need to tread carefully as their nations find themselves in increasingly fraught competition.
As I've said before, it seems to me our responsibility as leaders of China and the United States is to ensure that the competition between our countries does not veer into conflict, whether intended or unintended. Just simple, straightforward competition.
China and the U.S. should respect each other, coexist in peace, and pursue win-win cooperation. I'm willing to work with Mr. President to build consensus and take active steps to move China-U.S. relations forward in a positive direction.
Another big story in sports. In the NBA, the Chicago Bulls earned their 4th win in the last 5 games with a 121-103 road victory over the Los Angeles Lakers. DeMar DeRozan led the way with 38 points as Chicago improved to 10-4 and remained in first place in the Central Division. Former Lakers guard Lonzo Ball, meanwhile, added a season-high 27 points on 7 of 10 shooting from three-point range in the victory. Elsewhere, the Phoenix Suns extended their winning streak to 9 games with a 99-96 victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves. Chris Paul scored 19 of his 21 points in the 4th quarter to lead the Suns as they move to 10-3 in the standings. Here are other scores from NBA games earlier today.
That's my dream one day, to just have a director's chair with my name on it, Jiyoung.
Meet the newest resident of Sesame Street. The 7-year-old Jiyoung made history as the first Asian American Muppet. Jiyoung believes she's living up to her name.
Chi means like smart or wise, and young means like brave or courageous or strong. Yeah. But we were looking it up, and guess what?
What?
Chi also means sesame.
Jiyoung has 3 favorite hobbies.
Number 1 favoriteest thing to do is play the electric guitar, because I love rock music. And I just started skateboarding. I'm not that good at it yet, but I'm working on it. And then I really love cooking with my harmony. That's my grandma.
Jiyoung's puppeteer Kathleen Kim says the Muppets introduction is more than just inclusivity.
And I think it was honestly inspired, unfortunately, by the past year and the rise in, attacks and racist incidents against Asian people, especially during COVID.
Kathleen hopes Jiyoung can teach kids about racism and how to speak out against it. Jiyoung will be formally introduced in a special episode on HBO Max this Thanksgiving Day. Nick Garcia, We Are When News.
So, what to do with our face shields now that it's already optional?
Hindi ako makatulog kagabi, partner. Kakaisip, anong gagawin ko sa mga face shields sa bahay? Just imagining how many face shields there are in the Philippines with millions of homes and it being a requirement. Kaya nag-tweet ako kagabi and I asked my followers if they have any suggestions on what to do with the face shields and where we can bring it. And one user actually suggested going green and recycling by donating the gear to Plastic Flamingo. Another one suggested converting it to Christmas decors like lanterns and Christmas trees.
Pwede. I saw this one user, sabi niya, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Donate it to hospitals, lalo na if it's unused, di ba?
That's true.
A lot of people stocked up as our medical frontliners still need them. Meanwhile, another user suggested that the shields be used during frying. Aba, nagpiprito nga naman. Mahirap na matilimsigan ka so as to prevent oil from splashing onto the face, which is what it's for.
Right.
Originally.
Meron pang nagsabi, pwedeng poop scooper. Diba sa aso at sa mga pets. Pero ako, alam mo kung anong natagpuan ko. Naisip ko pwede kong gawin. Pwede ko yata siyang gawing headband kasi parang effective siya. Effective siyang headband, di ba?
Sige, gawin mo. Kaming lahat nakakahinga ng maayos. Okay, but ayun nga, parang ako, ayoko pang itapon kasi hindi mo alam, baka biglang magbago na naman isip
Marami
ng
rin
mga
nag-reply ng ganyan. Hindi daw muna nila itatapon. Pero ang suggestion ko, just keep one. Diba? One per person. And then maybe mga 10 years later, we will have that as memorabilia.
Bottom line, kahit ano pa po ang payagan ng gobyerno, nasa sa atin pa rin po ang ating kaligtasan. Safety first. Focus on what you know is safe, not what is allowed.
That's true. In the meantime, please breathe well. That wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen. Ho, ho, ho! Reminding you that Christmas is now just
39 days away.
Woo!
May lalabas ba dito? Ayun.
There you
39
go.
days away.
Santa on a motorcycle, diba?
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat.
Ang ating samahan, di